Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a presentation on fad diets, and I'm going to talk about some nutrition trends as well. Um, so let's get started. Oh, I guess I should tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a dietitian now for about 25 years, working in lots of different areas of nutrition, including long-term care, dialysis, doing one-on-one nutrition counseling, doing working with the community department at Valley, doing presentation like this, and as well as doing inpatient work. I am a graduate of the University of Connecticut with my bachelor's in dietetics, and that's a little bit about me. And I'm the mom of three amazing boys, ages 17, 14, and 11. So my life is very busy. Anyhow, let's get started. Okay, so things that we're going to cover this evening. We're going to talk about what a fad diet is considered, some definitions of fad diets, how are we going to identify when what a fad diet is, some examples of fad diets, including some benefits they might have, as well as drawbacks to each of them. Then we're going to go into some nutrition trends that people talk about quite often, and then get into our conclusions, and we'll finish it up with questions if anybody has any at the end. So what is a fad diet? What's the definition? So there really is no single definition of what a fad diet is. There are a couple of things floating out there. The Cleveland Clinic states that fad diets are plans sold as the best and fastest approach to losing weight, while the Federal Trade Commission defines fad diets as those that are highly restrictive, promoting energy-dense foods that are often poor in nutrients and usually not supported by research. It's also been called the type of diet that is what's in fashion, what's popular, what people are talking about, what people are doing, what you might see on social media nowadays. And a lot of times it's just for a short period of time. How are we going to identify what might be a fad diet? Well, the first thing is if something's promising a quick fix, like lose 10 pounds in 1 week, that's usually going to be the sign that it's a fad diet. And in the same regard, if it sounds too good to be true, losing 10 pounds in 2 weeks, that definitely sounds too good to be true. This is a big red flag for me, and it identifies a fad diet if they're putting foods in categories of good and bad. Food, there is no moral value to food. Food is not good and food is not bad. So that's a way to identify a fad diet. Eliminating one or more food groups. There are many fad diets that will do this. If they're boasting about a diet and there's a study behind it, but the recommendations are based on one single study, another red flag to it being a fad diet. And if it's selling a product, that also can usually be identified with a fad diet. Excuse me. I have to apologize too. I have a little bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds strange or if I cough, that is why. Also, studies that do not have a peer review. That's another way to identify it as a fad diet. And the thing with selling a product, it's so interesting because I was on social media earlier, and a lot of people make claims about this food being bad, this food being good, and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, what they're trying to do is ultimately sell you a supplement to replace, the nutrients you're missing from the food that they're telling you not to eat. So in the end, they're trying to sell you a product so that they can make money. So, one popular fad diet, this one seems not to be going away. It's been around quite a long time. Low carb diets. You might have heard, someone saying they're on the keto diet or a paleo diet. These are some examples of what we call low carb diets. What is a keto diet? To be honest, the keto diet was primarily created to help reduce the frequency of epileptic seizures in children. I remember when I first started as a dietitian 25 years ago, working at the hospital, and children would come in with a diagnosis of epilepsy, and we would put them on a keto diet to help reduce the seizures. It's not that it always happens or works, but this was what the ketogenic diet was created for. The goal with the keto diet is to have your body burning fat for energy rather than carbohydrates, and this puts your body into ketosis. However, the brain's main source of energy, its preferred source of energy, is carbohydrates. So this switches the brain. The brain has to switch to a different energy source. This diet drastically reduces your intake of carbohydrates to 20 to 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. Now, think about that. That might sound like a lot to you, but one small apple, an apple that's, the size of a tennis ball, baseball, has about 21 grams of carbs. So you can see that is a very limited intake of carbohydrates. And most foods that we eat do contain some carbohydrates. So it would be a very high fat diet, which takes you to the next bullet point. It's an increased intake of fats and protein. And the thing here is that it's not differentiating on the different types of fat or the different types of protein. This diet, because it's so limited in carbohydrates, you're going to have a limited intake in fruit, vegetables, and as well as whole grains. Are there possible benefits to the keto diet? There may be some. One of them, a side effect might be weight loss. And a lot of people, that's why what draws them to trying the keto diet is because they want to lose weight. Some people say that they have more energy when they're following this type of diet. Again, because this diet was primarily for children with to prevent seizures, it may help reduce or prevent seizures for some children. Some people also say they've had improvement in their blood sugar control. This is for type 2 diabetics. However, oftentimes it's a short-term thing. And one big thing is that there is limited research on the keto diet possible benefits. Limited research. Now, what about some diet drawbacks or risks if you decide you want to try the keto diet? It can be high in saturated fat. Saturated fat is primarily a fat that is solid at room temperature, found primarily in animal proteins. So, think when you're looking at a piece of red meat and you see a lot of white running through that, we call that marbling. That's saturated fat. The skin of chicken, butter, whole milk dairy products, this is saturated fat. High intake of saturated fat is actually associated with an increase of LDL cholesterol, which we call the bad cholesterol. So you can see why this would be a risk. Following a keto diegetic puts you at risk for possible nutrient deficiencies because the diet is so limited in fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. Another drawback would be that because you're limiting your intake of fruit, veggies, and grains, is that you will probably not be getting enough fiber in your diet, which, along with constipation, fiber is such a wonderful thing, and I never thought in my life I'd be talking so much about fiber, but fiber, has so many benefits, and as of course, keeping you regular, having regular bowel movements. It helps keep you feeling fuller longer. It helps with cholesterol reduction, and blood sugar control. So this would limit your intake of fiber. And in general, I'll be honest, it's hard to sustain this diet long term. If you cannot sustain a diet long term, that is also a red flag for being a fad diet. I have had patients come to me who have had success on the keto diet saying, oh, I lost 30 pounds, I lost this, I felt great, but they can't sustain it. It's not something you can do long term. And then they end up going back to eat, quote unquote, regularly. And what happens? They gain the weight back. So paleo diet. So just so you know, the paleo era dates from like 2.5 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago. The purpose of the paleo diet is to eat how humans did during the Paleolithic era. And sometimes people call it the caveman diet. Um, And the concept behind it is that our genes are not suited for modern diets, how we're eating now. It's not necessarily as extreme as keto. It does include some fruit, veggies, lean meat, nuts, and seeds, but it does avoid all grains, legumes, and dairy. Basically, the idea behind this diet is if your ancestors could hunt or gather it, it's allowed on the paleo diet. What are some possible benefits to the paleo diet? Just like the keto diet, a benefit could be weight loss. It does have a little bit of an emphasis on fruit, veggies, and lean meat, so there will be more carbohydrates allowed. You do avoid most processed foods. Short-term studies here, short-term, suggest it might help improve blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides. However, there's been no long-term clinical studies on it. So what happens in the long term if we eat this way? What are some drawbacks or risks associated with the paleo diet? Well, the absence of whole grains and legumes. So whole grains and legumes being beans, peas, and lentils, those are all good sources of fiber, some proteins, vitamins, minerals, etc. A big one being fiber too. The absence of dairy. Dairy is a good source of calcium, vitamin D, protein, so avoiding all dairy, that could be a risk factor too. It may be costly because you're eliminating food groups that tend to be more affordable, like grains, legumes, and dairy are more affordable than, poultry, meat, fruits and vegetables for some. And it's questionable theory about how our ancestors ate. Are we really sure that they ate this certain way? And not to mention the life expectancy of people that lived in that era was, the Paleolithic era was probably, I'm guessing, not that long. We've come a long way with science. Moving on to the vegan diet. I included this because it can be a fad for some people. In the vegan diet, only plant-based foods are included, nothing coming from an animal. So it is excluding all meat, including fish, eggs, all dairy, any other animal products, even including honey. And I believe anything that's made with gelatin is also excluded from this diet. If someone is following a vegan diet, it should include fortified foods, often needing supplements, vitamin, mineral supplements if you're following a vegan diet. So there are some possible benefits to a vegan diet. It does encourage a limited intake of a lot of processed foods when it's done correctly. That's when done correctly. Possible reduced risk of heart disease because decreased cholesterol. Again, you're eliminating animal products from your diet, so therefore your diet is going to be very low in saturated fat and cholesterol. So heart disease may show improvement. Also may lower your chance of certain cancers. However, it should be noted that you can be vegan and you can be overweight and obese. Just because you're consuming a vegan diet does not mean that you are necessarily going to lose weight. It can, but not necessarily. There are still unhealthy vegan foods. Um, from what I understand, I believe that Oreos are vegan. So you can still eat not so healthy things on a vegan diet. Some drawbacks. Obviously, nutrient deficiencies, because you're eliminating such like a huge food group. Some of those of concern when you're following a vegan diet would be things like iron, vitamin B12, calcium, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids. And just as I mentioned, people that are following a vegan diet may continue to eat many processed foods. I know that there are a lot of vegan processed meats out there. Not that they're necessarily bad, but just because you're following a vegan diet doesn't mean you're not eating processed foods. When you're following a vegan diet, you need to be mindful of foods that you are and are not consuming. They need to be sort of in the right, what's the word I'm thinking of? Quantities, and making sure you're getting all the nutrients you need from different foods. It's very restrictive, and it does often require supplementation, especially of the ones mentioned above, like the B12, calcium, vitamin D. Mediterranean diet, this is widely recommended, but it's worth noting, because sometimes people think of it can be considered more of a fad diet. It is a way of eating that's based mainly on countries that border, obviously, the Mediterranean Sea, Italy and Greece being two of those countries. It's a diet comprised mostly of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, seeds, nuts, olives, and olive oil. There is some fish and seafood in this diet. It's poultry on occasion, but red meat and sweets like desserts are severely limited. An emphasis is on more of a plant-based foods and healthy fats. The Mediterranean diet possible benefits, there definitely are some. It, may lower the risk of heart disease because the diet is low in saturated fat. Again, not as much animal protein. It may help with weight loss for sure, because you're eating mostly whole unprocessed foods. It may lower the risk for certain types of cancer, as well as support a healthy blood sugar. This diet includes many different nutrients that work together to help the body. There's no single food or ingredient responsible for the benefits of the Mediterranean diet. It's a diet that could be good for you because of the combinations of the nutrients that it includes. It's limited in saturated fat and trans-saturated fat. It encourages more of higher intake of unsaturated fats, even including omega-3 fats, generally lower in sodium. It's limited in refined carbohydrates. It's higher in fiber and antioxidants, which may be the reason for the lower risk of certain types of cancer. What are some drawbacks? It was difficult to find drawbacks compared to the other diets. The Mediterranean diet is pretty well-rounded way of eating. It's more of a lifestyle, I would say, than a true diet, in the sense that most people use the word diet. The people in this region just eat this way without particular, measurements. There's no, you should have this many servings a day, or, that many servings. Compared to this standard American diet, this diet definitely contains fewer meats, fewer processed carbohydrates, higher intake of unsaturated fats, and there's more plant-based foods and nuts. So some potential drawbacks, it could be that you might overeat on some of the higher calorie foods. Often I have people come to me that snack on nuts all day long, and while often I tell people nuts are great, they are a high calorie food. So a small serving goes a long way as far as calories are concerned. Some honorable mentions. I'm not going to go into the full detail of some of these, but intermittent fasting, that's definitely a fad right now. It's basically a time-restricted way of eating. Some people, it might be I eat 5 days and then I fast 2 days, or I eat within a certain time window, whether it's like 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. or whatever the window it is. It focuses more on when you're eating, not what you're eating. It could aid in weight loss because if you're eating in a shortened amount of time, you're likely eating less calories than you were. So it's likely just the reduction in caloric intake. And it's not for everyone, definitely not for everyone. Pregnant, diabetics, if you have a history of an eating disorder, this is not for you. Oh gosh, juice cleanses and detox diets. These definitely fads, and I do get questions about them still to this day. It's really not clear, what are we detoxifying? We have wonderful organs in our body that do that for us. Our liver detoxifies things, the lungs clean out the air that we breathe. As basically just turning fruit and vegetables into juice. And of course, you're going to lose weight on it because it's an extremely low calorie diet. But the minute you go back to eating regular food or eating food that you need to chew, you're going to be gaining the weight back. And there's really not much clinical evidence. Now we're going into more of, nutrition myths or things that you might hear out there, like brown sugar is better than white sugar. Sugar is sugar. Brown sugar is not healthier than white sugar. Brown sugar is just white sugar that has molasses still. The white sugar is just with the molasses removed, but it's still going to have the same, caloric value, affect your blood sugar the same way. There is no health benefit to using brown sugar. This is another one I hear. Brown eggs are more nutritious than white eggs. This is a nutrition mill. Eggshell color has nothing to do with the quality, flavor, nutritive value, cooking, or shell thickness. The eggshell color is really dependent on the breed of the hen that's laying the egg. Eggs are pretty much identical in nutritional value unless their feed has been enhanced or they're getting additional vitamins or supplements. But there's really not much of a difference between egg versus egg. Here's another one. Certain foods can burn fat that if you eat them, you're going to magically start burning calories, like if grapefruit, celery, cabbage soup, those types of things. No single food, there is no food that you burn calories eating. That's not a thing. Weight loss basic is consuming less calories than you need, or burning more calories than you need, or a combination of the two, I should say. Another nutrition myth, sea salt versus table salt. I could also throw pink Himalayan salt in there. Both have the basic same nutritional value. The difference between the salts, all the salts may come from taste and texture. Often table salt is more fine, whereas the sea salt or pink Himalayan salt has larger crystals, but the same amount of sodium. According to the American Heart Association, teaspoon for teaspoon, well, I shouldn't say teaspoon for teaspoon, but they contain the same amount of sodium. And when I say teaspoon for teaspoon, that's because a teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt that has large crystals might seem like there's less sodium. It's just because it's not as finely ground as table salt, but they're basically very similar. So conclusion. In general, when someone goes on a diet, they often fail. And why is it? It's because they're temporary. It's something you're doing short term. It's not a lifestyle change. They tend to deprive us, right? And what happens if you're deprived of something for so long? Like if you want that one Reese's peanut butter cup, but you're thinking, I can't eat it because that's a bad food, so I should have the fruit. The fruit is only going to serve its purpose for so long, but eventually you're going to want that Reese's peanut butter cup. And if you're deprived that long, you're probably going to overdo it. Some of these diets just don't fit into our lifestyle for long term, and they're not meant to be. Let's see. In general, I want to sort of end with this slide. This is sort of how we want our food choice, or where we want our food choices to be coming from, right? We want look at this food plate. We want to be eating mostly fruits, vegetables, whole grains, or I would say complex carbohydrates, where it says whole grains, healthy protein, healthy fats, and drinking plenty of water, limiting your intake of, juice, sodas, things like that. If you're going to do dairy, do low fat, fat-free dairy products that will make sure you're also limiting your intake of saturated fat. But when we're choosing our meals, this is how we sort what we want to be choosing from. And I usually say snacks. Okay. Excuse me. Snacks. If you're not eating any fruit with any of your meals, what could you be eating as a snack? I would say fruit could be an option, or maybe some low-fat yogurt with some fruit on top. Think outside of the literal box, outside of the processed boxes of snacks that we have in our pantry, and snack on things that we should, be including in our diet if you're not getting them at your meals. And with that, I'm concluding. I'm going to open it up for questions. And I also wanted to let you know that we do have one-on-one nutrition counseling through the Valley Hospital, excuse me, through a program called Recipe for Life. It's located at the Lookout Pavilion, which is across the street from where the new hospital is. If anyone is interested, or if you know someone that's interested in having one-on-one nutrition counseling, you can call the number that's on this last slide, 201-634-5371, to schedule an appointment with a dietitian. We do have appointments Monday through Friday and some Saturdays available. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Nicole. Great presentation. Even though you were a little under the weather, still awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions yet, but we will give it a few minutes to see if any questions pop up. We are on a little bit of a time delay here, so we'll see what pops up here. I think we got a quiet group tonight. No questions, Nicole.
I answered all their questions.
That's it. You did such a wonderful presentation. You answered everything. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to Nicole. Thank you to everyone for attending and joining us. If you do come up with any questions, you could shoot us an email. You can use the email that you registered for the program. Nicole included our Recipe for Life number. You can give that number a call too. We can always get those questions over to Nicole if need be. Let me just finish this, and we did get one question. Let's see. Is it harder to lose weight if you have hypothyroidism?
I think in general, people say that it is harder to lose weight. Maybe if you do have hypothyroidism, my suggestion would always be to meet with a endocrinologist to have your levels checked and be on the appropriate medication if need be, and that may help with weight loss.
Great answer, Nicole. I think we just had to stir them up a little bit. We have another question here that says, how much water is enough to drink?
Oh, this question is so interesting because I think if you ask 10 different healthcare professionals, you'll get 10 different answers. You know, everybody, it used to be 8-ounce glasses a day, right? 64 ounces a day. I've come to the conclusion that a good way to determine if you're hydrated enough is when you go to the bathroom, look at your urine. If it's pretty clear, only light yellow, you're probably hydrated enough. If there's no yellow, you're probably overhydrated. If it looks like apple juice, you're likely dehydrated. I've also heard some healthcare professionals say take your weight and divide it in half, and that's about how many ounces you should be drinking. However, if you're overweight, that would be a lot of water. So there's many ways.
Yep. Great answer. Let's see. I have high cholesterol. What foods are best to lower my cholesterol without the need to take statins?
I usually say, also, this caveat, if you have a family history of high cholesterol, diet alone may not reduce your cholesterol. Foods high in fiber, whole grains, bread with at least 2 grams of fiber per slice, fruits, vegetables, a way to up your fiber intake. Also, I often tell my patients to buy ground flax seeds. It's often called milled flax seeds or flaxseed meal. It has omega-3 fatty acids in it, fiber in it. You could add it to oatmeal, or I usually put it in yogurt. Diet high in fiber, low in saturated fat. Oh gosh, that's the big one. Making sure you're limiting the intake of saturated fat in your diet, because that's what tends to increase cholesterol the most in your diet.
And just to add to that, another big thing is being within your correct BMI weight or your ideal body weight.
Yes.
That's a big plus as well. So
even a 5% change in weight has been shown to help reduce cholesterol.
Yep. And these are all things that if people struggle with these things, Nicole can help out at our with the counseling program to meet with. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Weight Watchers diet?
I'm not sure. I don't know much about it. Are they still doing the points? Like,
I think they are.
I think if it works for you, then it's anything that works for people long term that you could stay on it for the duration. I'm sort of the mindset, all foods are included. If it works for you, then it's beneficial. If it's doing what it's supposed to do, helping you lose weight, or maybe you have some blood work parameters that you're trying to improve, and that helps, then it's okay.
Just to add to it a little bit, I think that if a diet teaches you how to eat correctly, and how to have, what to eat, the amounts to eat, and gives you sustained ability, like Nicole said, that is, something that's good. A lot of these diets, like Nicole talked about, have quick, fast solutions, but they don't stay with you for long term. So if something teaches you how to sustain a good lifestyle, maintain a weight, I think that's a good thing too.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. I drink water a lot and it goes right through me. Is that okay?
I guess, unless you think it's a problem, then I would talk to your doctor. I mean, right? Maybe you're just overhydrated. Could be a possibility.
Yeah, I think that could be an individual thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Do you recommend using chia seeds?
Yeah, chia seeds are good too. I just happen to like the ground flax seeds because like from my understanding, if it's ground, then you're being exposed to more of what's on the inside of the seed. I haven't really tried chia seeds too much, but from what I understand, they're good as far as fiber and things like that.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions. So again, I want to say thank you to Nicole. You did a great job. Even though you're a little under the weather, thank you again. Thank you to everyone for joining us. If you have any additional questions, you can reach us on the number on the screen. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. So with that being said, I'd like to just say thank you for joining us and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.